Wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Well, good morning and welcome back. It is Monday morning again, start of another week, and we are going to finish off this Kaldorian today. What I need to do, what I'd like very much to do, is to get a clear coat of a satin finish on it to kind of seal in those pencil marks that I did over the weekend. But it is overcast, rainy, and damp outside, so that might be tough. I'll have to pick a good window to do that. But then I've got the keep wanting to say fluorescent, the reflective bits of vinyl plotted. All I need to do is start plopping them down. But I want to do that over the gloss coat or over the satin coat so that they have a nice smooth finish to attach to. So let's see if I can find an appropriate window in the weather to get that taken care of. Now I had to spray the bottom of the feet because that orange paint is delicate, and as soon as it hits the ground it wants to scrape off, so I'm trying to put some protective coatings over that. And I put these pieces of felt on the center of the feet to kind of raise them up so that these never come in contact with the ground, and hopefully that'll help keep the paint from scratching off. So those need to be glued into place. I kind of like the idea of gluing them down, or gluing the base, the ring around them, so that they are able to do this, which means they would be self-leveling on any shelf or anything to go on. But that's not the way it was in the episode. When it flies off, those feet are flat, so I guess I need to glue those flat and straight down. So I can take care of that, I guess, while I'm waiting for the weather to clear. Okay, this is going along very well. I don't know how well the camera picks it up, but having these shapes in here and the reflective material, it helps to really define the shapes, because you know, while a hole may be, or an indent might be a little off round, or these triangles might be a little wonky, as soon as you put that colored vinyl in there, it really helps sharpen up the borders and really defines those shapes. And I think it's again, I can see it when I am putting things down off of fluorescent lighting. It looks brighter at certain angles. I don't know how well the camera's picking it up, but you really, maybe if you look at this one here, the way it looks when the camera moves around, it's really striking. So let me finish up doing these, and we'll be done with this kit. Okay, you see all of the markings are in on the top. Now there's this one last strip. Actually, there's three of them. There are these three last strips of dots that go down that are not indented into the hull, and I don't know whether they cropped up after the molding process, or whether it was George's intention to always have them sit on the hull. But these are the templates that come with the kit to do those, and if they look familiar, it's because that's my yellow vinyl. So yeah, I'm kind of familiar with these shapes. So what I'm doing is laying the yellow template down on the hull where it's supposed to be. I'm pulling out the little dots that are in it. Well, let me just show you. I'll take it step by step here. Okay, here's the template laying on the hull, and the important thing is this first dot needs to be on the same radius as the top of these two triangles. Now, if you were to painting all these on, what you'd do at this point is mask off on all four sides and then just spray your paint in there. But what I'm doing is using these open holes as the guides to putting, and again, trying to do this with one hand, actually filling up that hole with the reflective vinyl, which, since it's the same file and the same shape, it is the same size. And I'll do that up the rest, filling in the rest of them, and then simply remove the yellow template. I'm using it for spacing and position. Okay, there you go. You can see all the holes are now filled with the reflective vinyl. I'm just centering them in those holes. And now, because this takes two hands, I don't think I can do it with one hand. I need to carefully remove this yellow vinyl and leave the reflective dots in place. There you go, one nicely lined up, symmetrical line of dots. And I'll do that one more time. And then the last bit of reflective bit is to go on these big ovals. And that's probably going to be the toughest part of all of it, to get that lined up. Oh, I've got the last little bit on, which, well, hardly a little bit, it's the big bit. It's the nerve-wracking bit. It's the sphincter tightening bit, is this guy. You have to slice it and cut it, and rather than try to put it all in one piece, because it won't go on that way. But if you cut it and then inch it around, it'll fit, hopefully on the first go. But this is now, other than getting the head put on it, this is all done. So let's get the head on it and call it a done thing. Okay, ladies and germs, there's your finished Kaldorian. And I was taking some still pictures, and I noticed that I was getting, let's see if I can recreate it here. No, it's tough to do it, but yeah, maybe you can see there. I'm getting that same orange flash that I talked about, and it was because of the sighting. The sighting laser, or the sighting light that you used for focusing on the camera, and that just turns everything orange. So, Elliot, you were exactly right about that. There, maybe you can see it. And what was happening is that was being photographed, and it was showing up, I guess, as a delayed focus flash. But when I take pictures of this, particularly without the lights on above, I do get that wonderful glow from the fluorescent, or from the reflective material. Okay, we're going to get started on the Reliant. This is what the kit looks like now. As you maybe can glean from this, I started working on this once before a long time ago, and it just got so overwhelming, just the sheer scope of it, that I put it aside. I think something newer, smaller, sexier appeared, and I had to go build it, and the next thing you know, it goes back in the box and back in the stash, and you forget about it. But it's time to resurrect it and bring it back into the light of day. This is, moving these aside, this is the kit. This is what you get in the Reliant Kit. And this is what you need. You need to have a refit. As you can tell by the box art, this is one of the original old refits. And as a matter of fact, this was the mock-up refit that I used to make the templates for the refit. So it's all haphazardly painted and chewed out. But I saved it knowing when the refits first came out, you know, everybody buys one to build, one to put back, and then one to make the Reliant out of, because you knew it was going to come. Well, it never did until now. So that box, that refit gets resurrected. The good news is, when you're done with this, you got a ton of pieces left over. So if you want to build your shuttle bay or anything like that, you certainly have a whole nother set of parts for that. But let's talk about this kit. As good as some of the parts are cast, some of the parts are not cast as well. This big piece, I'm not going to tell Donna's business, but I would have made it in two parts, because it was when I got the casting of it, it looked a lot like this. It had it was filled in from here, obviously, because it was hollow cast, and you had to cut this part out. But what happened is that the back of it is almost completely solid, which means I can't get into any of these areas to drill out for lights or windows or anything. I may be able to get some of these for fiber optics that I can run through, but a lot of the places are completely jammed up. Plus, you can see that it kind of concaves there, so the shape isn't very good. It needs to be reinforced and such. So we'll get into that in when we get into building. But you have to have, like I said, you have to have a refit set, and you have to do some. I'm going to sit down because this is going to take a while. You have to alter a lot of the parts that you're going to need from the refit. Like you're going to use the engines on the refit, you're going to use the warp engines, and you're going to use the saucer on the refit from the refit. Those are the parts that carry over. Now, there are some subtle differences in the engines on the Reliant than they were on the refit. You can either, because they are kind of subtle, you can either opt to, super detail and correct all of those, or you can take the refit engines as they are. This assembly here should be moved back a little bit. There's actually more space up the front here. This needs to be moved back. I'm of two minds. I don't think I'm going to bother doing that, only because I can't make this Reliant kit all that I want it to be because of some other limitations. So I'm not going to spend the extra time it's going to take to do that. Also, what you need to do, this is the inside part that has the clear bit, which, like I said, on the Reliant was not lit. So I'm going to be putting this is the clear piece that goes in there, the clear insert. I am going to be painting that over, obviously, because I don't need it to be lit. I am going to try to snake a light down for the strobe that goes here. We'll see how well that goes. But because of the way the nacelles are formed on the refit, there's a big pylon that goes here, so there's a different connecting area. That all has to be removed and chewed out. This shape here needs to be smoothed over because the Reliant engine's attached from the top. So you need to cut a hole here and make that for the piece that goes, and this is cleverly devised with that notch in it. That notch actually goes over a set of the pins, so you don't have to lose that structural rigidity of cutting those pins out. So it goes in, well, let me stand it up. It goes in like that. So that's how that goes from the top, but from the bottom you have to close that up, and that's going to take a lot of Bondo or putty or whatever you're going to use. But I plan on filling a lot of it in with this tube, and then I only have to, smooth over the top of the tube. The tube will give me a lot of the dimension that I need. So that's the first bit of work that needs to be done on your stock part. And the big amount of work that needs to be done on your stock part is you need to take your top saucer and cut this shape out. Cut everything there out, and I think I've got it here in the box. I screwed up. I'll freely admit that. I screwed up on that, and I cut out too much. I didn't leave enough here or here, and this is kind of ragged. I went to the panel lines. I went exactly to the panel lines on the saucer, and I should have left enough overhang for the lip. This is the part that I cut out, and you can see this is where I was using some testing on the templates. But you get something like that, and you remove that chunk. But look at all the parts you've got left. I mean, you've got enough almost to build an entire new starship, except for the saucer, the important parts like the saucer and the engine. But this is the big important piece. You cut this out, and then I'm trying to do this one-handedly very quickly. You put this piece over top of this piece, and you are, 80% of the way towards your Reliant. And making that mount together is going to be the toughest part. And then, of course, you have the parts that make up the roll bar here. Now, this is a beautifully cast piece, but it is a hollow cast piece. I don't know, because there is no opening to show me how the resin got out. So maybe it's a solid piece. I don't know. But if it were something where the top were removed, I would feel more comfortable in lighting it. So this is not going to get any lighting. And had this piece been cut up in two parts, it would have been easier to work with. But as it is, as you can tell, I can't get back in there to run a lot of wiring or anything. So we're going to minimally light. Obviously, we're going to light the front windows here because, back out. We're going to light the front windows here because we can get to them. We're going to try to light these guys because we can get to those. And I'm going to try to run a lighting to the impulse crystals and the impulse engines, minimal lighting. I don't know that I'm going to get a lot of strobe action going on, or I might get a set of nav lights on here. It's going to be a stripped down version of the Reliant. It's not going to be the full bells and whistles. I'm going to try to paint it really pretty, but as far as the lighting and the special effects, it's going to be minimal. Now, I taped these two parts together because we know from building refits how these two parts are supposed to go. This is the correct shape. It's locked in. It's forever and ever. Hallelujah. This is because it's a cast resin part. It wavers up and down and fluctuates, and the edge isn't consistent. So what we need to do is made it in such a way that we can, find an attachment point, and then little by little we made it up to this edge, which we know as a constant. And frankly, I'm going to do this first because, and then of course, after this is all glued and dried and everything is set up, then I'll take this top, hood off so that we can get on with the building. But frankly, if you don't get these two parts to line up, there's really no sense building the rest of this kit. This is what has to work to make the whole ship work. And if it's going to screw up, then, pat yourself on the back, say it was a nice try, put it back on the shelf in a box, because if these two parts don't go together, what good is the rest of it? It's just not going to be, unless you're making a destroyed Saratoga or a destroyed Miranda or a destroyed something else. Unless you can get these two parts to match up, everything, I can't stress the importance enough, everything depends on getting this section here mated to that section straight, true, level, and happy. Beyond that, getting the nacelles, parallel and square is secondary. Getting this stuff done correct is first off is the important bit. These are some of the extra cast pieces that you might recognize that go on the hull after you have joined everything up. And this piece here is going to help a lot in the covering the multitude of sins when it comes to the bottom. So if I can flip this over with one hand. Oh man, that's big. So this is what it looks like from the bottom, and there's a nice clean edge here that does join up to. And then this goes over top of it, and then you start seeing your familiar Reliant contours. But if you don't get this together, there's no sense playing with the rest of it. Okay, it is time to join these two pieces together, and when it comes to the adhesives, I'm going to throw the book at it. I'm going to start with CA, but I've got 1 minute epoxy, I've got epoxy sculpt, I've got Tenax, I've got acetone, I've got staples, I've got every adhesive I can think of to, and I'll probably throw all of it, even the two-part epoxy putty. I'll probably throw all of that at this joint at one point or another, but I'm going to start right here, joining these two parts together just like that, and then working my way around. Basically what I need to do is glue this, make it really secure, pull this one tight down and make it secure, and then fill in the center. It's not going to be pretty, it's not going to be fun, but it's something that needs to be done. Okay, it looks like the first step is successful. I've got this joint CA glued, and it seems to be holding in place. I'm going to turn it over on the inside and reinforce the hell out of it, but you can see, let me do this, you can see how much this is sunk below that, and that's all because of the warp of this back panel. You can, let me grab a tool here to do it, you can pull this up to the right height and takes the warp right out. So we're just going to have to build that ledge in, or put spacers in the bottom of this to prop that up. The thing to do now is to take this piece off, and so that I can get inside and reinforce that back joint. Okay, the first thing I discovered is this is not a lot of room. That is not going to be near as easy to get into as I was thinking it was going to be. These guys come up very much closer than I thought they would to each other. I thought there'd be plenty of room to get in around there, because I have big plans for those areas. So, as much as I hate to do it, I might have to cut some sort of access panel in here, which is not at all what I was planning on doing. That just means more patching that I've got to do. I mean, luckily there are panel lines here that one can use, but it just wasn't what I was thinking of doing. If I do anything, I might have to cut panels out of these sides here and not disrupt any of the structure that's going on, particularly under where the roll bar goes or anything along this spine. I might have to cut boxes out of here and here. So I need to back up and ponder on that. One of the things I want to do is get a block of wood and prop this up to the proper height, so that when this, and luckily you have all these great pins here to lock the front part of the saucer back in place. So that's as sturdy as anything. But I can look at this now and tell you that this has to come up, the center of it has to come up at least a half an inch, if not 3/4 of an inch. So I've got to put some sort of block under there to pull that up. Plus, I got to think about how this is going to be mounted, and I'm thinking of using standard lamp accessories, which are, you know, the threaded rod and the cross pieces that have the little thread, inside thread in them. I've used those before on the bigger kits, and I was hoping that I could make a plate that would go in here from the underside and screw to that, so that all of the weight was on the top part of that and none of it was hanging off of the bottom. I want all of the weight displacement to be right here, so that when it's sitting on the base, this is what's taking up the weight. Okay, while I am still pondering the top access issue, I'm going to go ahead and add these plates to the bottom, because I can do it. It's not going to interfere with whatever I decide to do on the top, and B, they also help overlap this joint between this piece and this piece, and any reinforcement we can get in there is a good thing. This piece here, which covers up the neck hole, I was thinking maybe putting it on with magnets, being able to take it off, but it's so delicate, especially up in here, that I want to go ahead and glue it down. Now I know that when the time comes to put the post in it, to balance this on a post, it's probably going to end up going right through there. So I want to go ahead and get this in place and get it attached down and get it nice and secure. Now, wonderful thing about this kit is that, of course, you've got all these notches, and the notches fit in here, and this fits right up nice next to that piece, and you just kind of center it on there and you go. So we'll go ahead and get those 4 pieces in, or 5 pieces in, and then we'll flip it back over from the top. Okay, these 5 pieces are in. I'm going to let that CA set up for a while. Flip our tensions back over to here, and this, so I'm saying this needs to come up about maybe 1/2 inch, something like that. I think building up a lip underneath here is going to also help, so that when it goes in, it forces that to sit up to the same level. So that's a goal to be worked on, and the roll bar is a goal to be worked on. What I'm going to do, since I do not plan on lighting it, I mean, this is the guy that sits right about here, I do not plan on lighting this, so I can go ahead and put the 2 arms of the roll bar in, and that way I can do the smoothing and the sanding and the filling of seams, and make that all one piece that just, you know, sits down on it when I'm ready, so I can be painting the underneath of it and all that. It's one of those deals where you gotta kind of have to treat it as a separate animal, because, and then set it down, because you have to paint not only the underside of the roll bar but the top deck here. So having it something that maybe it will sit down with a magnet. Maybe I'll use magnets to put the roll bar in place. So if I want to, you know, show that it's another ship, I just yank the roll bar off, change the decals. But I'm not going to be doing a lot of that. But again, thinking of something that might help it if I need to transport it. If I can remove that, have it only sitting in place with a couple of strong magnets that I can pop off, then that does make it easier to move. Also makes it, like I said, easier to work with, easier to paint, all that kind of stuff. Okay, I think I've pondered this thing long enough. Gonna cut out a section. I'm gonna try it on one side first and see how it works. Gonna cut out a section that goes from here, follows that line, curves around there, follows that curved line, and then cuts straight back over through here. I've got my doubts, but we'll see how it goes. It could be a very bad mistake. Okay, as it turns out, not the biggest mistake in the world. Now I only have to ponder whether it's worth doing it on the other side, or whether I can get everything. I'm kind of spoiled now, because now I can see all this access, so it's giving me hope for lighting up more areas I hadn't thought of lighting previously. So yeah, I think I'm going to try doing the other side as well. That could be the step too far, but we'll find out. Okay, well, great news. It worked. Yay. So happy. This is also going to provide me with an unexpected benefit. Not only can I get in here and put the epoxy down to solidify that joint, not only can I get under here and put lights in the windows and all that kind of stuff, but the most important thing is I can put a tube in the center now and jack that up to the right height, and know that actually even after I've got the front of the saucer on, I can still pull things up and make it match and do a lot of my internal gutsing stuff here. Because like I said, this is where the joint's going to come up through for the post, for the stand and everything. So that was a good solution. All I need to do now is take some strip styrene, show you a piece here, take some strip styrene and do this kind of work on the inside to make a ledge, so that when I put the piece back down in place, it has some place to rest on, and then I can fill in that that seam. But very, very happy with this. So this is where I'm going to put the epoxy in, and this is where I'm going to stop for the evening, because I've gotten a lot of work done on this all told today, and I don't want to jinx myself. So let's put some epoxy and walk away. The line of epoxy, 1 minute epoxy, is in there and doing its stuff. This is what I was talking about being able to get in behind there now and pull this whole center up to the right. By putting a block in here, I can raise this whole thing up so that it meets the contours of the saucer the way it should. All I gotta do is put some sort of wedge or a block underneath there to a little styrene wall or some sort of wall that I can build up underneath there. so that everything there you go, so that everything comes up to the right height. And friends, this is probably and any of you people out there who build garage kits will identify with this. This is the way you know I'm serious about working on this kit, not putting it back in the stash. I'm going to throw away the box it came in. I'm going to recycle the styrofoam because I use that to pack stuff. But I'm going to throw away that box. So you know it's got no place to go now. So it's point of no return time. Okay, so we're officially on day 2 of the big Reliant, the Maxi Reliant project. And unofficially day 2 because I had been working on this thing off and on for a while. And I'm reusing the saucer that I have used when I give talks about how to put down the Aztek templates. I'm using my mock-up saucer for this. So and you'll see various parts of it had been worked on. But the important part is that this is, I'm shaking it, believe it or not. This is me shaking it. This is solid. There you go. It's solid. It's been on all night. The epoxy has sealed in. It is nice and flat along the bottom, which is the thing that it was the most important for me to be. I've got all of the plantons done on the bottom. Now, what you're seeing here is what I'm going to be trying to work on today. And that is this guy. See, this is in the proper place. This is lined up with all the pins. And I think one of the things I'm going to do this afternoon is I'm not going to glue the top down because it's way too premature for that. But I believe I can glue in the perimeter, the window pieces. What I want to do today is fashion some sort of block that I can put under here to raise this up to the right height. And at first it will be temporary, and then what I'll try to do is probably make some sort of solid wall in between those 2 points so that that stays up in its proper orientation and everything is hunky and dory. The other thing is I've decided to use the kit bridge, and I'll tell you why. Here are the 2 bridges. This is the kit, this is the kit bridge, and this is the bridge that comes with the conversion set. There's a lot to not like about this, but there's a lot to like. It's probably closer in the actual design and in the profile, but I gotta tell you, it's gonna take a lot of work to get this to make it useful, because if you plan on putting any lights in it, if you plan on putting a strobe in here, you plan on putting, the light shining out through there, it's gonna take a lot of hollowing out, and I don't want to do that. So this, although it's a little bit bigger, is already hollow. So, a little bit of light block and you're good to go. The only thing I need to do is raise it up a little bit so that when it sits on the B deck here, that you do get the the little areas for the light to come out of the front and sides. But that's just going to take some strip styrene and a little bit of CA, and that'll take care of that. But it needs to sit up like that, but not quite that high. So I'm going to use that. But the important thing is to get, and I'm letting lots of curing time in between these. I'm in no hurry to get this thing done. So let me get this up in place, and I think what I'm going to do is laminate some plastic pieces together to make the blocks that I need. Okay, I'm getting pretty happy with this. I know it's never going to be perfect. I've already kind of made that peace with myself. But what I've done is I put some flange piece. Well, I'll take this piece off and show you. The important thing is when I hold this up, the bridge seems to be level. Maybe kicks up a little in the front, but I can play with that by pulling up the back side of that a little bit. The most important thing is that this measurement here seems to be about right. That seems to be like, now there's a dip right in here, but just where it hits the top seems to be nice and level. And I do plan on filling that gully in with putty, but I think we've got it got it pretty level. There, that's what you want to see. because you're not taking in the rest of that dip into account. See, that's laying pretty flat there. So I think I'm going to be able to lay that in. Now that's going to take a lot of putty, and of course it means this is going to go in last. But what's happening is, let me pull this off. What I've got, you can see is I've got some light sheet styrene, some flangey bits going on and around that to kind of take up the, to give a base to where that gap is going to be. And then I've got a clear bit of tube under it, holding it at the right height. And what I'm going to do is stab a light into that tube and glue it in place, and then once that's there, I can run power to that light, and it will shine up through here. It'll shine out to all of the windows. I think we'll be in pretty good shape. I might add some additional strip lighting around the window banks themselves, but I think we're pretty good. Okay, now you have not seen a lot of the work I've been doing today because it's been a lot of little frustrated fiddling and faddling with chips of plastic and all that. But I think I'm finally to the point where I can glue up these braces and do some epoxying in here to kind of fill in, reinforce what I've got done, and then reinforce that tower that's down in the bottom, get that glued into place, so that when I pull the top of this off, I can then flip this thing around and glue like the front edges of everything. So I think we're just going to be working our way towards the front. So let me pull these guys back out, glue them, and slide them back in. Oh, by the way, I wanted to make sure that you saw this. I am happy with the level nature of the B deck there. I am very happy with this elevation here. Everything here seems to be lining up. I don't mind the gap. To all of our UK friends, I don't mind the gap here and here. It's cavernous, it's huge, it's very deep, but it's going to be filled in with epoxy and you're never going to see it once I start the painting. My only question is pulling this apart and putting whatever lighting I'm going to put in here and close it up, and then I can kind of work in and around here to take care of the rest of the lighting. I've got this, whether I showed it or not on screen, this wonderful little tower of LEDs that I'm planning on poking up through the that tower that's in the center, and it will shine out through everything else. Welcome back. It is, what is it? Is it Wednesday today already? No, it's Thursday. It's Thursday already. And we're back to working on Shea Reliant, which we will be for quite a while. So get used to this. Yesterday, if you'll recall, really solidified that thing. So it's not going anywhere. Also, I did a bit of work last night on the nacelles, because that big area under there needs to be filled in. But before I can fill it in completely, I need to do whatever I'm going to do inside and seal the engines up, because that last, here you can see what it looks like when I take it apart in half. Starting to do some of that infill work with the epoxy putty, knowing that, yeah, there's going to be more work that needs to be done, but I can at least start on it. And I'm deciding what lighting is going to go in here, if any at all, because getting lights into this piece, or getting wiring into this piece, is going to be nigh on impossible. It's got a small metal tube running straight up, which is meant, I guess, to feed into the roll bar, but I'm not going to be using that. What I need is a line that goes up through here and kind of comes out here somewhere, so that I can feed it into the sidewall and take care of it from there. So that's something to think about. But my main goal for today is to take this top back off and do whatever I think I'm going to do inside the saucer, and then seal it back up. So let's get this top off. Okay, the top is off, and you can maybe see underneath there that plastic tube that has been epoxied in here, and these guys are down nice and stiff now. And importantly, this has been epoxied to hold that up at the correct elevation. Same on both sides to make it nice and even. And now I need to figure out about putting, if I'm going to put lights, zoom back out, if I'm going to put lights in these windows, I need to figure out the best way to do that. You've always got the problem with this big lip. This big lip, which is meant to attach into here, but also when you do that, you have to chew a lot of this away, or else you're never going to be able to light the top part, the top row of windows there. So lots more destruction to be doing. Okay, I've got the background chewed out. Anybody who's built a refit knows this is something you've got to do, because that extra wall there will block your lighting as it comes to the front. You can see how it fits on there. So I've come up with an idea that I think is going to work, but to do it right, what I'm going to do is build everything into this piece, because it is easier to work with. I can work with this piece out by itself, and the larger ship I won't have to be manhandling that around, because it is kind of unwieldy. So what I need to do is remove these window strips from the bottom of the saucer and reattach them to the top piece, and do all my light blocking and everything to the top piece, and just leave a long pigtail on it so that I can join up the wiring and then set it down. I think that's going to be the most effective way of doing it. Plus it'll let me get in behind here and do the light blocking that I need to do all the way out to the edge. So let's do that. Okay, you can see it looks very much like this. And yes, you've noticed the visitor signal here, insignia. This is how old this piece of plastic is. I used it when I was testing out templates for the visitor insignia. So yeah, it's been around. But here we can see this one long strip. What I need to do is build up a 1/4 inch high wall just on the inside of these pegs. I'm sorry, just to the outside of these pegs. And something I can stick this adhesive strip to. But what I like especially about the spacing of this is it puts one right in front of like the little beacony lights and navigational thrusters and things like that, so those will catch some light spill. Proving that once again I can be taught. This time I'm not going to repeat the mistakes I did on the Franklin. This time I'm going to light block everything before I put the rim lights in, and that's what you see here. I've got all the parts together, I think, for what I want to do, but once I get started on it, I don't want to have to back out of it and paint the light blocking on before I can finish. I want to be able to barrel through it. So I've got the light blocking done on the big rim here. I've got light blocking done on the inside where all my work is going to happen. These are the insides of the window panels. These are the wall that I am making to stick the light strip to. So I'm going to let all that dry for a while, and I may think about doing some yard work, because we've been in one of those cycles lately where it has rained at least a portion of every day for like the last 2 weeks, and the grass sorely needs mowing, but I'm maybe mowing in between the raindrops, which I don't like to do. Hello, and I'm back. Boy, am I tired. Had to mow the yard. I've never actually run behind a mower before, but I was doing some pretty brisk walking the whole way. It really wears you out. Had to get it done before the latest round of storms came through, but that was good because it forced me to step away from the kit long enough for these parts to get a good healthy drying in, and now that they're dry I can start my construction here. Well, what I'm going to do is, now that I've got this whole area blacked out, is I'm going to build a wall right through here, and that's where I'm going to attach this strip of strip lighting. I feel vindicated. It's been a mere 25, maybe 30 minutes since I finished mowing, and the rains have come. Lovely little cardinal out by the bird feeder. Trying to get in from the rain, but yep. Timed it just right. There you go. I'm all kinds of happy with this. Strip is in there. All of the light is going this way, which means the light blocking that way is not needed. Once I put the bottom on, you will be able to see, yes, there will be seams that need to be taken care of, but all the lighting is coming out the windows the way I wanted it to. And these little guys are lighting up the maneuvering thrusters and stuff, so this is all good. Now, next step is to glue in the window strips. I need to figure out whether I want to frost those. I may want to sand those and frost them just to diffuse that light behind them, because it's not like there's any rooms or anything showing up behind there. So let me sand those, and then we'll be ready to glue these down. And then the next round of epoxy, which I think I'm going to use JB Weld because it is black or gray, and it's an excellent light block, and I can just do some seaming with the JB Weld. Okay, it's a goopy mess, but it's a done thing. I'll let this epoxy or the JB Weld cure up. It takes a little longer than regular epoxies to cure, but the results are oh so pretty because it light blocks and it self levels, and it just it's just a pretty thing. So we're gonna let all of this let me light it up. Let me just light it up. Hold up 1 second. Okay, it's lit. And let me flip it over here, and you can see how nicely those light banks of windows are going to be lit, and even to the little beacons on the front there. Yeah, you are seeing some light leak, but hopefully the outside painting will take care of a lot of that. But you get these little guys here lighting up. No blinking. Not going to be doing that now. That was just it flashing. No blinking. I'm not going to put any elaborate circuits in this thing. So I'll be happy just to get the lighting in. But long step in getting that done today. Very happy. All I have to do now is put some masks over those windows to keep them clean. But luckily I know a guy that does that. So that's no biggie. That's no biggie whatsoever. It's not even a biggie small. Not even a small biggie. So we're going to take care of that. But this is going very well. And I think I will pat myself on the back again for doing all of this work up on this piece and not involving the huge body of the rest of the kit to do it. So let it cure and come back to it later. Perhaps, maybe a little bit more tonight, but probably not till tomorrow. Okay, and this is where we're going to wrap up for this evening. I'm just holding this down in place. It's not been glued or anything yet. Don't get too excited. But you can see that we have definitely accomplished what we need to accomplish as far as lighting the windows. Now this seam under here obviously will get pulled in and glued, but and that's easy enough to take care of. But that definitely has done the trick that I wanted. Sorry, scroll out. That has done the trick that I want it to do as far as lighting up all of the windows. So we're making slow but steady progress on this, and that's frankly good enough for me. Well, good morning. It is Friday, the last work day of the week, as I want to be saying. Very happy with the success of yesterday. This is just charming. Really like how that turned out. And I need to decide what I'm going to do today. I like this slow and steady method of building. It seems to be working for me. I've got one last bit of really deep construction. Let me get this thing off. This is the problem with working on this small table. on this big kit is that I really don't have the space to spread out, so I need to work on things and then move them off the table. Let me catch you up here before we get on to today's work. Last night I put in the clear bits for the impulse engines, and I also worked on the top of the impulse crystal a little bit. I've got that kind of glued in or epoxied in, and that's ready to go down. I just need to put the lighting behind that. Let's see, what else did I do last night? Oh, well, you know, we'll get around to it. So now I am working on the last bit of really destruction before I can get into the construction, and that is this. I've decided, I don't know how elaborate I'm going to be, but I'm decided to run lights down into the nacelles, and to do that I need to cut a channel. Like I said, this has a metal tube in it that one could run wiring in, but it comes up too high. It comes up there, which is meant, I guess, to run out to the roll bar, but doesn't help me as far as getting power from the engine into the body of the ship. So I'm going to cut a channel here, and if I've got to cut a channel anyway, I'm going to cut a channel for 4 wires. I've got this nice little ribbon cable that's a beautiful length, very low profile, and I'm just going to cut a channel through here, and then I can putty back over top of that with either epoxy sculpt or any of the other epoxy putties that I have, and then smooth it over with some Bondo. Not going to be, I mean, it's probably the least visible part of the ship is right in through here, so yeah, it's going to take some doing and to make it pretty again, but that's what I'm going to do. So I say that to say this: if I'm going to run wiring anyway, would it hurt me to run enough wiring that I could light the inside of the nacelles? Wasn't planning on doing it. But probably still put it on a separate circuit so that I could turn it off and turn it on when I want, because I believe in the purity, the sanctity of Wrath of Khan, where these were not lit. But I can understand it's a fan favorite, and I can do it, and I've got the stuff, so why not? I'm not going whole hog. I'm not cutting this down and moving it back. In the real world, this guy here would get moved back about, I think about 3/8 of an inch, and this part here is reshaped, and there's replacement pieces for all of this. I'm not going to do all of that. I am going to close up the headlights here, because those were things that were used on the refit. These 2 front holes here, those were used on the refit but are not used on the Reliant, so I'm going to close those up. I do believe there are 2 additional lights here that are new, that are opened up, that are meant to shine on the inside of the bottom of the saucer. So I'm going to do some more research on those and possibly add those. But I think first goal today is going to be to run this wiring. And then if I can run the wiring and get these guys attached today with the wires intact, then I can start thinking about getting this guy on some sort of base. Run the pole up to here where the base is going to be. It's going to sit on something like that, and worry about getting this lighting done. There's also the holes back here. If I can drill them the rest of the way through all that real thick resin, then I can think about running fiber optics out to them and not try to light them with a light source, but see these ones, this is where it's nice and thin. Up here, this is like solid thick resin, so I can't run lights all the way out there. But if I can make drill a long enough hole, I can maybe run fiber optics to it. Also need to put lighting, obviously, back behind these guys and these guys, and I've been using the handy Tamiya drill to drill out these windows. They are the same size as the windows on the saucer, so I'm drilling these out to be the same size there as well. Lots to get through today, but by focusing, oh, one last thing is I want to work on the central tower here, using the bridge and using the planetary sensor on the bottom. I need to get this central tower lit up, or at least the wiring in place for it. So by concentrating on one thing at a time, I think I can get through it, but the secret is to not bite off more than I can chew. Okay, I just came back in from the back porch where it is raining mightily out there. Luckily, I was under the undercovered hanging part of it, but I was able to take this, well, I don't even have it. It's the Wonder Bit from the Dremel, and just cut myself out a channel here. I put some tape on either side of it to help delineate the channel, plus to keep any, keep any down to a minimum if the tool went wild and started gouging where it shouldn't. But what I've got is a nice beautiful channel here that I can go ahead and glue in. I'm just going to tack it in a couple spots just to keep it where it is until the epoxy sculpt has had a chance to set up. So let me take the tape off of these and get these channels embedded. Okay, this is kind of the anatomy of the nacelle. You can see where the tabs come down into the body of the nacelle itself. So what I only need to do really is to leave enough lead wire at the bottom so that I can splice into it. I want to make sure I have a comfortable amount in case anything untoward happens. So I'm going to split off some of the lighting or the wiring and bare the ends of it so that I know that I have at least a good amount of lead wire in here, and then the rest will just go up into the body. Okay, so I just cut a strip of styrene to fill in that gap, glued it in over top. I've got all of my wires bared on both ends, and I just need to throw in some epoxy sculpt over top of that, and then that will be good to go, and we'll go ahead and do the other one. Well, that's just lovely. I've got the epoxy sculpt all laid in there. First time I've really tried using the solvent that is made to use with epoxy sculpt. I've had it on the shelf for a while. I've never really had much of a cause to use it. But it does let you tool this very smooth finish, which will cut down on the amount of sanding and puttying and all that tremendously. And the leftover I just used to start filling in that big gap there. But yeah, it's a good time to let this set up, and I will take a break, and when we come back to it, the next thing to do will be to kink that at a right angle like that and glue it, epoxy this onto the sides of the hull. So I want to make sure that this has good and set up before I do that. Okay, I am back. Boy, I never thought I'd get here. Back from lunch, went to Bohangla's to pick up some chicken, and stopped by a couple of stores to get supplies for the building of the base for this, and for some, went by the auto parts store to get some more primer and that kind of stuff. And I also picked up these two beauties, or this one beauty, for the warp engines. You know them, you love them. That's what they are. It's a couple sets of blue strip lights to put in the nacelles. Of course, they're going to be too long, so I'm going to have to cut some off the length of it to make them fit. But it's already more or less pre-wired, and everything's good to go. So I'm happy enough with that I don't have to reinvent the wheel on that. So the last thing I think I'm going to get done today, because I got delayed out in the apocalyptic rain, is to get these guys glued onto the side and clamped, and let that set up, and we'll call it a week on this guy. Okay, I've got it up and kind of taped together so you can kind of see the shape of what this thing is going to look like, how big it is, how much room it takes up. That looks suddenly small in comparison. Do this last bit here. This is just a balancing act here at this point, but you get the idea. And these are only rubber banded on, so obviously they're not towed in or true or level or square or any of that. And this is just sitting in place, but I want to give an idea of the elements as they will relate to each other. And the next thing to do really here is I need to put some lips. Oops, zoom back out. I am zoomed out. I need to put some lips here around these edges so that I can sit this back down on top of it, and it will be an access point that I can either get to or stick on with magnets or glue or fill in once I'm done. But so I need to put these lights in. Well, there's a whole ton of stuff I need to do, and I'll be picking that up again next week. But here's the wiring coming in from the nacelle with hopefully enough slack to get to. Really should have maybe added some more to that, who knows. And yeah, looking pretty good. Okay, I'd figure it's time to do something showy. And one of the things I got whilst I was out was a set of lights for the nacelles. Now these need to be diffused, obviously, but one thing I can determine at this point without any fear of contradiction is that they are too long, but perfectly at length when you chop off the last segment. So that's what I'm going to do. Very nice. Okay, wonderful. I think I found a good place to stop for the week. I've got these access panels all figured out. So I've got a little lip running around the outside edge there so that I can sit this down in it. Got the lamp accessories that I need. I'm going to epoxy a metal plate to the top of this and then affix it to the bottom here, and then the hole goes down that this goes through, and then that distributes the weight on all of that flatness instead of just at one point. The wider the top plate, the better the weight distribution. And I've got the bridge on. I don't know if you saw that. Working on the impulse crystal back here. Also have the planetary sensor, kind of starting to play with that. This looks like a weird shadow, and it is. It's the one part that hasn't been painted, so it looks like it's almost cut out, but it's not. Important, the pylons are on, and I've got some putty in here to make that seem nice and pretty. And the next big thing will be leveling out the engines and getting them square and level and true and all of that. But I've got these nice little guys here to go in the engines. That'll be fun. A little bit of bling. I resisted it originally, but then I was able to chase that wire down the inside so neatly and so cleanly that I now have wiring to accomplish what I need to get done there. So that is where she's going to rest for the weekend. And that, gentle viewer, is where we are going to turn off the lights for another week. Got a lot done. I mean, considering this was, very, very many desperate pieces of resin and plastic at the start of the week, I think I got a tremendous amount done. Next week, we should be able to get serious with some of the lighting in the nacelles, get the nacelles on, get all of this area lit, get the windows inside the back part here lit, and after that we close it up and we start painting. Ooh! So if I can get all that stuff closed up next week, maybe we'll get a first coat of primer on everything. Won't that be fun? But I'm getting ahead of myself. There you go. There's the big shot. To quote Billy Joel, you had to be a big shot. So got the Kaldorian finished at the beginning of the week, if you can remember back that far, and then started diving in headfirst on the Reliant, and it's going very well. Going very well. I'm fingers crossed, toes crossed, eyes crossed, everything. T's dotted, and I can't resist. Woo, 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 woo. There you go. There's your evil blue light. Nice thing about this demo set, the way this thing is set up. Sorry. Ooh, he's back. The way this lighting kit is, or the auto thing is set up, I'm going to have not only a switch, a battery pack, a on-off junction here, and a whole bunch of wiring left over, because I'm not going to need nearly all of the wiring that comes with this. So it's like, yes, this is what I wanted, but you know, I paid for this and I get all this other stuff for free. So very happy with all of that. And who knows what kind of fun we'll get into next week. So until then, stay dry. It has been raining like a mofo around here. If this is what it's like to live in the Great Northwest, you can keep it. I want to see me some sunshine. So I'll try to stay dry. You do the same. We'll see you here next week. Be good to each other, and don't jump in any puddles.